again, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. My name is Mars, and today we're going to do the complete guide for Lilith. But before we get to that, how did you like that new intro? I made it myself, so it's got that little homemade sort of je ne sais quoi. Don't hate me if it's bad. I don't actually have a whole lot of experience with that, but I made it because I wanted to. That's like what the cool YouTubers do, right? Am I cool? Am I cool yet? I'm trying. Before we dive into this guide for Lilith, I kind of want to just jump in here and try something out. I haven't tested this, it's an idea in my head, but it looks like a fun way to kind of introduce Lilith, because in reviewing her kit, she's got such an incredible diversity of skills that she offers, and that's why personally I am super excited about her, why I saw her and was like, she is someone that I want. I kind of ignored everything else on the Halloween banner because they're all trap units. Yeah, that triple rainbow non-step up banner is hideous, and I personally would never pull on that because it's grotesque. There's far too many rainbow units in a single banner and no way to help you get the rainbow you're looking for, so I would never ever pull on that. But there was a step up for Lilith, so luckily I got Lilith really quickly. I got 2 of her, and so I retired from the banner because she's the one that I want. Oh yeah. See, there's that counter chaining that a lot of people are hyping up. It's pretty cool. I personally don't see a lot of use for it outside of the arena, but it's, some nice bonus damage because, I didn't have to do anything for that. It just was damage. And I would really love Lid's Limit Burst, like right now, please. So Zarg, do the thing. Oh, yes. Okay, cool. This might be a bad idea, but let's just see how much damage we can do. Keep in mind that Lucius is basically doing 0 damage because he's doing physical damage. So, this is magical damage from Lilith, and then physical damage from Lucius, and also I don't have spark chaining anymore for now because it's broken. Thank you, Gumi. So let's see if I can manually do this. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think I got it. It was pretty close. Well, that was plenty. Yeah, so not only is Lilith a competent tank, but she's not bad on the damage either. Now we'll go into her whole kit, what makes her unique, what makes her special, why I personally kind of dropped my jaw a little bit when I saw her kit and was like, give me that unit. We'll also look at some of her drawbacks and how to counteract those, as well as part of this guide. Alrighty, we have relocated to the training dummy so that we can review Lilith's skills. So before anything else, let's take a quick look at her Trustmaster reward, which is the Midnight Star. It grants 15 attack and 95 spirit, which is kind of just okay in my opinion, but the demonization passive grants 20% HP and 10% defense and spirit, if I recall correctly. Because once again, I'm doing most of this from my memory because I've read over her page and I've played with her throughout the day, kind of figure out how she works. So her Trustmaster reward is okay. Her Super Trustmaster reward is also kind of like, it's good in the situations where you're going to use it. 30% HP and 30% defense and spirit with a mace is going to be really good on her, as well as the 50% fire and dark resistance, also going to be great when it's going to be great, but also absolutely not a super TMR I would ever pull super hard for. So not something to get super excited about. If you happen to get it, then cool. But Midnight Star is also one of those weapons you'll probably only use on her or the rare occasional tank that can also use flails. Now her Limit Burst, Sinister Dance, does magic damage to all enemies, and it looks super cool. It heals her, it restores some of her MP, and it mitigates her incoming damage for 2 turns, which is very nice. I won't see any purpose in leveling it because the only thing that levels when you level it is the damage, so don't bother leveling it, in my opinion. Now she has a whole bunch of skills that are called Serpente skills, which can be dual cast at 6 stars, which makes her not a bad tank at 6 stars as well. So we'll kind of touch on those. So Kiss of Dusk and Kiss of Dawn, which are these 2 guys here, these imperil Dark and Fire respectively by 50%, and there's a chance to charm all enemies. And you'll find that most of her offensive skills do provide that charm chance. So these skills don't do that much damage, but they are super nice for the chance that, you want to imperil damage before doing it with her, or if you have a fire or dark damage dealer in your party. she can help imperil them for that. Serpente Unholy Kiss is actually a self buff. I know it looks similar to, her damage skills, but this one actually buffs her it buffs her defense and spirit by a high amount for the first turn, and then decreasing amounts for successive turns for like 3 turns or something like that. So if you want a little boost in survivability, you can pop that for, I think it's 110%. Or maybe it's 120%. Either way, if you're using Nickel or Zargabaath for buffing, I should call him Zargabaath. Yes, that's his new name, Zargabaath. You probably won't use Unholy Kiss that much. It does a little bit of magic damage, so, yeah, I don't really care about that. What is that? Oh, and it also poisons them. I was like, what the heck is that debuff? Yeah, so it takes damage every turn. Also poisons the enemy. Effectively, I don't think you'll ever really need that for anything. Now, moving on, she has Love Hungry, which is a self re-raise, 80%, and that's great. It also puts a 1000 HP barrier, which makes it not quite as good as Chow's self re-raise, because that can full heal him, which can reduce the need for a healer, but it's pretty good. All the same, especially because it means you don't need Divine Soleil's TMR or another healer to cast it on her. Now, Counter Curse is the thing that caught my eye with her. This one's the big deal. This is the reason why I was excited about her. It removes all breaks. It removes all elemental debuffs, so all imperils. And it removes all status ailments for the caster. And it buffs all breaks resistance for all allies. So break resistance on a tank is the reason why to this day I will still use Veritas of the Earth on occasion, because it is so useful, especially if you go into a fight like Venomous Vines where the break percent is out of this world, because they break you by 100% all of your stats. This prevents that from happening. It will also cleanse it from her if she gets hit by it, and it removes elemental debuffs, which we know is one of the biggest pains when you're going into a Esper fight, because the Espers or other high elemental damage, like magic damage fights, they'll imperil you to the damage, so you either have to have a super high resistance, or you could just use this, remove the imperils, and all you need is 100% resistance. And you might have issues where it like conflicts with the turn that you need to reactivate your cover skill on, but it's whatever. You can make it work. Now, she does have 2 guard abilities, so she's similar to Bosch in that she can cover both physical and magical damage, and she doesn't have a provoke skill, so that's how she's different from like someone like Mercenary Ramza. So she doesn't have a cooldown cover, but she also cannot provoke. And it's also worth noting at the time of recording, I believe Magical Demonic Guard is still bugged. It's covering physical damage and not magical damage. I imagine they'll fix that super quick because it seems to be like a simple error in the part of the code. Now, looking at Serpente Dusk Lash and Dawn Lash, these abilities are similar to the Kiss of Dusk and Kiss of Dawn. However, these, instead of being AoE, are single target, but they imperil by 60% each. The additional benefit is that these chain with the Kingsglaive ability for Nyx and the other chaining abilities in that family. So she can chain with Lucius, and she can chain with Enhanced Yoon, and with a dupe and things like that, and it does pretty good damage. It's a 5x modifier with spirit scaling, so it can actually do pretty formidable damage, especially because she can dual cast it, and she doesn't need to like dual wield or do anything weird with it. Good skill, good skill. And now the last of her damage skills, we'll look at this one real quick. This is Serpente Kiss of Midnight, which then combines her fire and dark damage into this Aureal Ray family chaining skill. So she can chain with Victor, she can chain with Lucius, she can chain with Malphase. The biggest drawback to it, of course, is that it is fixed element types of fire and dark. So if you go against a boss like the Venomous Vines, which is 300% resistant to dark, you're not actually going to do any damage. So kind of sucks in the instances that you can't do dark damage, or fire damage, of course. But yeah, if you can do both types of damage, like the enemy is susceptible to it, then it will do some pretty fantastic damage. Now, her cooldown skills, in my opinion, are not that impressive. This first one does magic damage for 5 turns, so it's another poison type thing. It drains HP and has a chance of charming one enemy, so I look at this and I'm like, not super in love with it. I don't see a whole lot of use for it. It does have a pretty high chance of poisoning, or of charming rather. I think it's a 20% chance. So if you wanted to do a cheese strat where you skip a threshold by charming stuff, if that's still even a thing, then you could do that. Enchanting Corruption is another one of her cooldown skills. It boosts defensive spirit for the caster, fills LB rate, and boosts fire and dark resistance for all allies. The defense and spirit buff is not that great, and the limit burst gauge fill is a maximum of only like 4 crystals, so that's also not that amazing, and fire and dark resistance by 70%. So if you happen to need those two, it's not bad to have on a tank, but I believe it does not have perfect uptime, so kind of not that amazing either. So, you know, you have it in case you need it. Personally, I don't see myself ever using this. So, and I don't recall, was that only for her for the... Oh, it's all allies for the elemental buff. So, you know, at least it's for everyone, but it's not that great. Hypnotic Presence is an ability that reduces physical and magic damage taken for the caster. This is kind of similar to like Awakened Rain or Wilhelm, who have their respective like damage reduction cooldowns. This is the same sort of thing, so she can tank extra damage for a particular turn, but it does not mitigate damage as much as it does for those other units. And the other thing to remember about Serpente Kiss of Midnight, which I forgot to mention, this one also restores your HP and MP when you cast it. It's a net gain even if you dual cast it, so it's a good way of restoring your MP if you're out, like I am right now. Or you can use her Limit Burst, because that also restores her MP, and it looks so cool. So that's a quick overview of her kit and what she can do. How would I use her? I think I would use her primarily as a cover tank and then use her in conjunction with a provoke tank. She does have the versatility of being, you know, an evade physical cover, or she can be a magic cover, or she can be a beefy physical cover. Like, it's honestly up to you. She is such a versatile unit. She can do pretty impressive damage, and I just love her versatility personally. The ability to imperil, the ability to restore your own HP and MP, break resistance, debuff removal, self re-raise, all of those things together make for a really awesome kit. So without further ado, let's jump into some builds. Alrighty, so the first build that we want to look at is a build that can help maximize the damage that she can do if that's what you're going for. I know most people are going to use her as a tank, which is perfectly fine, but she can also double up as a damage dealer. So if you really wanted to maximize her damage, what you want to do is put as much spirit in her as possible. With the new 400% cap, she is able to almost hit 2,000 spirit, which is pretty astronomically huge. The additional benefit is she doesn't need dual wield or anything like that to take advantage of her attack abilities, so you can just Hulk her out with as much spirit as you can put on her. Now granted, this is obviously like a super mega whale build. I know this. But this is just an example of the sort of thing that you can work towards. Well, okay, maybe not work towards, because the game is fickle and you get the units that you get. But regardless, it's to kind of illustrate what the upper echelon of power looks like. You can start throwing stuff like, actually, don't do Holy Wand. That's a pointer to take away from this. Don't do Holy Wand. Because then you add an additional element. Oh my goodness. I cannot spell. What is wrong with me? Okay, Nirvana. There we go. Non-elemental, you definitely do not want to equip Holy Rod or Holy Wand, because that will add a third element for her to chain with, and that's an additional element for enemies to resist, and you're further mixing your damage. So personally, I would never do that. You can replace this shield with anything with high spirit. I mean, basically the essence is use lots of spirit if you want to do damage. Personally, I'm not going to do that because I also want to use her as a tank, which is where the magical EHP build is the one that I went for in here, and it spits something like this out. Similar in very many ways because it's super high in spirit, but also adds a lot of HP. And like any tank, you don't have to get super particular with the builds. You put on them what you have. Super important to put the Midnight Star on her so that you can get the benefit of the Trust Mastery passive, which is an additional 30% defense and spirit, along with some limit, burst autofill, and the ability to resist a killing blow. So that's really good to have equipped on her, and it really, really needs item world enhancements. So for me, right now, I'm like, please, Gumi, right now, right away, give us the flails back. Like, she needs this so badly because her HP passives are in the pooper. They are terrible. I've never seen a tank with lower HP passives. 30% out of the, like, as part of our native kit is terrible. It is so bad. And it gets under my skin because she's a tank. But okay, it's fine. You can see that with the rare enhancement mod on Midnight Star, you get an extra 30%. It really does make a huge difference, because if you take those away, and granted, you know, I put this as like the perfect roll of like all 3 of the most maximum HP. But if you have nothing on it, which is what everybody has right now, she can't even break 1800 HP. Maybe she can, but she would trade some EHP stuff. Now, you add those and it shoots right up. If you just add the 30% one and no other one, you're almost at 20,000 HP with this other stuff. And I know. Super TMRs galore. I totally get it. This is just an example. If you're not sure the best way to build her, consider whether you're using her as a physical tank or as a magical tank. If you're using her as a magical tank, come to this little bar here and select magical EHP. If you're using her as a physical tank, select physical EHP, and if you have your equipment input into the builder, it can build using that for you, and it will just take a little bit to calculate. It will find the optimum build for you to physical tank or magical tank. And additionally, you can do a full evade build, and I'm pretty sure it's not too difficult with her, because she does have solid equipment options. Where is it? Am I blind? We already know that I cannot do math, and I cannot spell, and I cannot see is the new development this time. So yeah, it's not the easiest to get her at 100% evade, because I don't believe she has any passive, but this nice little succubus satchel gives her 20%, not 20%, gives 10% physical evade and 10% magical evade. So this is actually a really nice item for you to pick up from the event if you have her, because that will give you that extra evasion. So yeah, that's about it for builds. Honestly, most tanks, it's all about build them for the fight that you're going into. Obviously, the other thing that you can do instead of magical EHP against things like Esper fights is to go for elemental resistance. She is a little bit limited by the armor that she can equip. Like, she cannot equip the rainbow robe or things like that are normally high in spirit. So you kind of have to make do on elemental resistance. You can also do this seductress armor, which is evade. So that's a freebie. So anyways, that's kind of what you can do with builds. You just build her for the fight that you need. She's super flexible like Bosch. She doesn't quite have the same equipment selection that he does, but she still has some great options. So next we'll get on to my opinion of, is she worth the investment? Is she worth pulling for? Is her step up worth doing? So for the verdict, is Lilith worth pulling for? And my short answer for most people is just going to be a simple no. And the reason for that is because she is a limited time unit on a split 5-star banner with a step up. So the step up is helpful. It's nice. It makes it so that if you do want to pull for her, that is definitely the route you want to go, unless you have tickets or things that you can burn first. But just the situation of it being a limited time banner, meaning that you can't unit of choice her, you can't pull her off banner once the event ends, that honestly makes it a really tough sell for me to make for other people. Now, if she were on her own banner, or if, like, you know, every step of the step up you get a ticket that lets you, or like a ticket towards a set of 3 or something like that, where you can pick, you know, your choice of Lilith or Lucius, then maybe that would be different. But honestly, it's just a hard sell. And I think most people feel that way, especially with the fan favorite FFBE original Halloween units that are coming back again this year, including CG Sakura and crappy Vampire Laswell and extra Fiery Rain. Gosh, I cannot remember their names. Because I don't have them and I don't personally care for them that much. But I know a lot of other people do, and so they might be pulling on that triple rainbow banner. Altogether, it's kind of just an ugly situation for pulling, because all 5 of the rainbows that are up for the next 2 weeks are limited time, which makes it super, super difficult for people to feel like they want to pull, because it is so, so risky. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that you may consider throwing a few tickets or doing a lap or something like that in the hopes that you get at least one, and then maybe chance your luck that Gumi will give us a similar mixer system to what the Japanese version of the game has. Now, what that is, in the Japanese version of the game, you are able to exchange units that have 100% trust mastery for a currency that you can then exchange for very rare items, or very, very nice items, honestly. And what those items include are things like prisms for limited time units to allow you to awaken one to 7 stars, even though you only pulled one of that unit. So if you're able to pull a Lucius or a Lilith from this event, and you wanna wager that you're gonna have that option down the road, that's something that you can do. It's personally, I think it's a little bit risky because we don't know if or when we're going to get the mixer, or if we're going to have these limited units as an option to pull their prisms. And if you're somebody who hasn't been playing the game for a long time, you might find it difficult to come up with enough 100% trust master units to exchange. So there's a lot of caveats to that. There's a lot of reasons why you might consider, not pulling for just one. In my opinion, none of the Trust Master rewards from any of the Halloween units are worth pulling a single one for, so safe pass from a TMR perspective. I think a safe pass from an STMR perspective as well. Most of the STMRs are, that would be nice if I had them, but definitely do not need them type of STMRs. So, geez. In short, same rule as always. If you really like the unit, if you really want the unit, pull for it. The only way to guarantee that you do not get the unit is by not attempting to pull for it, but also measure your expectations against reality, because there's a very good chance that you might walk away with nothing, or you might walk away with 5 Lucius and no Succubus or no Lilith. So measure your expectations against the odds of the game. Do the step up if you're really hoping to get a hold of one of them. And I think that the people who should consider pulling more are the people who have the Lapis to spare and they're in need of a strong 7-star tank, because that's what Lilith provides, is solid 7-star tanking, and she's very flexible, so that's the nice thing. She cannot tank physical damage as well as Wilhelm or Mercenary Ramza, and she cannot tank magical damage as well as Awakened Rain. So that's kind of the cost of being flexible in the game, is you're often less specialized. So if you have Wilhelm and you have Awakened Rain, or you have Merc Ramza as your 7-star tanks, you might consider passing. Or if you have Bosch coming in the future for your 7-star roster, you might consider passing on her as well. Overall, I think it does make it a pretty skippable banner, considering the abysmally low chance of getting 2 of her or even the other Halloween units. So